welcome back to another episode of Homebrew EDH, where I take you through my personal commander decks, how they work and how they win. This episode is Klothys, God of Destiny. This is a red-green churn and burn deck. It's got land destruction, land hate, lots of damage to throw around, and all kinds of land things. Without further ado, let's get into it. Klothys is 1 red and a green for a 4/5 indestructible god. It says as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it's not a creature. And the second part says at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, so your first one in the turn, exile a target card from a graveyard. If it was a land card, add red or green. Otherwise, you gain 2 life, and Klothys deals 2 damage to each opponent. So I took this in a land destruction type deal because I enjoy playing that kind of thing. I know 99.9% of people don't, so this deck would probably see 1 game in its entire career if I ever actually built it, and then get probably torn apart and sold because nobody would ever want to play it again. So without further ado, let us jump into the meat of this deck. So it's a pretty standard kind of red-green package in terms of the land theme. So we've got things like Azusa and Bird's Paradise, Fintorn Elves, Llanowar Elves for your kind of standard early game ramp stuff. I do also have World Shaper in this deck, which is 4 mana 3/3. Whenever it attacks, you mill 3 cards. When it dies, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. There's a lot of land recursion in this deck as well, so that will be another kind of theme going on throughout the deck that you'll kind of see as we go through it. So the first thing I'm going to look at here is the land sacrifice, land destruction part of the deck, and then we'll move into all the other things. So in the creatures, we do have Dwarven Miner, which is 3 mana, tap, destroy target non-basic land. We also have Keldon Firebombers, which is 5 mana for a 3/3. When it comes into play, each player sacrifices all lands he or she controls except for 3, so all but 3 lands go. And then we have things like Stoneshaker Shaman, which is a 3 mana 1/1. At the end of each player's turn, that player sacrifices an untapped land, so it'll incentivize your opponents to tap out even if they don't want to, just to keep their lands around. And another fun one is Sunspine Lynx, 4 mana for a 5/4 cat that says players can't gain life, damage can't be prevented, and when it enters it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. So a lot of damage to throw around on that end. Let's jump into the sorceries real fast. This is where most of the heinous cards will come from. We have the infamous Blasphemous Act. We have Boom and Bust. Boom being a 2 mana sorcery to destroy target land we control and a land we don't control. Bust being the 6 mana sorcery that destroys all lands. Decree of Annihilation, which if you hardcast it for 10 mana removes everything from the game, but if you cycle it for 7 mana just destroys the lands. Epicenter, 5 mana sorcery. You can either have it target player sacrifice a land, or if you've got 7 or more cards in graveyard, which is the threshold, all players sacrifice all lands instead. We have Yockelops, which is a fun one. 6 mana, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands that can't be regenerated. We do run Life from the Loam just as part of the land recursion package to get the lands back to our hand so we can keep playing the game. Molten Rain is a 3 mana sorcery that destroys 1 land. If the land was non-basic, it will shock the land's controller. We have Pillage, 3 mana sorcery, destroy artifact or land that can't be regenerated. Ruination, that destroys all non-basic lands. Again, land reclamation. We have Splendid Reclamation in this category. 4 mana, return all lands from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Thoughts of Ruin is a fun one. 4 mana sorcery, each player sacrifices a land for each card in our hand, so it could be vastly different depending on how many cards we've played. We do also run Wildfire, which is 6 mana. Each player sacrifices 4 lands, deals 4 damage to each creature. And a fun card that I found from Murders at Carlisle Manor, which was a kind of, I feel, underrated set, but I did enjoy the precons from that set. This card is World Soul's Rage. It's X, a red, and a green for a sorcery that says it deals X damage to any target. Put up to X land cards from your hand and or graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. So again, kind of a sneaky sleeper card for land recursion and free land drops. So if you have a lot of landfall payoffs, you could use this card to kind of pull that off out of nowhere, which is pretty cool. The instance, I don't have too much. I do have a little bit of kind of removal. We've got Beast Within, crop rotation to find certain lands, things like Strip Mine or Beseiju, or Field of Ruin, that kind of thing. Wasteland as well. Heroic Intervention saves our lands from getting destroyed, which is pretty cool. Artifacts, I did not run that many because we're in that red-green color combination, which means we have the ramp that we don't really need a lot of artifacts, but I did include an Arcane Signet and a Soul Ring. Conduit of Worlds, which gives us a Crucible of Worlds effect, but we can also use spells if we did not cast any spells prior to using the ability. We do also run Crucible of Worlds, of course. Playing lands from graveyards is good. That's kind of a repeated, redundant effect in this deck. Dingus Egg is a lot of fun. It says whenever a land is put into your graveyard from play, Dingus Egg deals 2 damage to that land's controller. We compare that with Solfim Mayhem Dominus, which says if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent opponent controls, deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. So we compare this with Dingus Egg and a land destruction spell to deal a crap ton of damage to everybody at once. Going into enchantments, we do run a Blood Moon. Yes, we have a fair number of non-basics in our deck, but we do have 20 basic lands to round out that 36 land package. So Blood Moon is kind of a big deal, but not really, because a lot of our spells are red anyway, so the mountains honestly aren't the worst thing. Cindervines, again, goes with that Solfim package. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, deals 1 damage to that player. With Solfim out, it becomes 2 damage. Impending Disaster, 1 in a red. During your upkeep, if there are 7 or more lands in play, sacrifice Impending Disaster and destroy all lands. Kind of a, ticking time bomb kind of thing. Price of Glory, 3 mana whenever a player taps a land for mana during another player's turn, destroy that land, so it gets rid of your instant speed stuff at the cost of your lands. Mending of Dominaria, the first 2 chapters we don't really care about. This says mill 2 cards, return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, which, could be useful, but we're not really worried about our creatures in this deck a whole lot. The 3rd chapter is kind of our important one. Return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield, then shuffle your graveyard into your library, which is pretty useful. Undergrowth Recon, feel like another sleeper card from Karlov Banner. 3 mana enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, which the tapped part kind of sucks, but for 3 mana, honestly, not the worst thing in the world. And then we have a rather new card. This is Walk-In Closet and Forgotten Cellar. It's one of those room cards that came out with Duskmourn, I believe. We're really only worried about the first room there, the 3 mana Walk-In Closet says you can play lands from your graveyard. The 5 mana Forgotten Cellar says whenever you unlock this door, you may cast spells from your graveyard this turn, and if a card would be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile it instead. So we don't really want to use the Forgotten Cellar unless we're basically ending the game, but we're really only going to use that Walk-In Closet for the land from graveyard effect. And honestly, for the lands, it's not anything super surprising. We do have Beseiju, Commercial District for a Surveil land, Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter, as well as wherever it is, Strip Mine. Oh, and Wasteland for, land destruction, all that kinds of stuff. I'm going to run a Taiga in here just for color fixing, I guess. Same with the Stomping Ground, Spire Garden, that kind of thing. We do have 1 indestructible land in here. It is the Slagwoods Bridge, those artifact lands from Modern Horizons 2. That enter tap for 2 colors, and are indestructible. So I can survive the land destruction, but not necessarily the sacrifice from other effects. And honestly, that is really about it. Again, this deck, I would not recommend playing it against your friends unless you want to lose said friends, or have your stuff thrown in the parking lot once you're done. So, yeah, just be careful who you play this with if you do choose to play it at all. But that'll do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Deck list will be in the description as usual. If you did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like. Consider subscribing. We're closing in on that 300 subscriber mark every single day. I will see you guys later this week for another video. Hopefully I will get those boxes later this week. I tried to get those last week, but shipping did not quite play out, and they haven't shown up yet. So I'm just waiting on word for the Innistrad Remastered collector boxes. I do have 2 boxes on the way, so I'll probably have 2 different videos for that. Just keep your eye out. I should have those up later this week, probably Thursday if time permits. That's all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. Take care, and have a good one.